Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Four Corner Sports Fantasy Edition. I'm your host for this one, Brandon Pockers, joined by Austin Kane, Gabe Arena, and Zach Maddock. In this one, we're going to go over our draft order and a mock draft we did where we will give you the rundown of our thinking and how we attack the draft board. So to jump right into it, we have our draft order for our league, and the results were mixed. They were really mixed. To get right into it, with the number one pick, we have one of the co-hosts, Zach Maddock.
Oh, yes.
I mean, with the keeper round, the first round isn't really a big deal, but going forward in the draft, having that first pick will be key in Maddock's quest to return to the playoffs. At number two, we have Klopp. That's key for Klopp in his quest to finally make a run at the championship. So, co-host, what do we think of Klopp's positioning?
Yeah, Klopp should make the playoffs first. Klopp at 2 is going to be interesting because I'll have to deal with him on the turnaround coming back, but he's a solid player. I thought he drafted well last year. I just think it panned out for him with what he was thinking. It'll be good for him to get one of the top 15 players that are drafted, the keeper league, but Klopp's going to make some moves. I think with the 2 pick and everything he can do, Klopp's headed to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, having the 2 picks definitely going to help him. He's starting off with Derrick Henry as his keeper, assuming he keeps him over Le'Veon. And then having the 2 pick right off the bat in the first round. Be big for him. Maybe he'll find his way to the playoffs this year. We'll see how it goes.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I don't remember his drafting last year, so I can't really base it off of last year. But I feel like he'll screw it up somehow. It is Klopp, so.
It is Klopp.
At number 3, we have Jack Pettit, who himself is trying to make a return to prominence, a one-time champion in our league, trying to make it back to the top of the mountain. So, co-host, what do we think of this positioning for Jack?
As long as he doesn't draft Marshawn, I think he'll be fine.
Disclaimer, Pettit drafted Marshawn Lynch in the 4th round last year. Not too smart, if I were to say so myself. But, I mean,
the draft board was messed up, so.
Yeah, we'll give him that. That's a whole other story for another day. But basically, Pettit himself has said something to watch out for if you guys keep following us. Jack Pettit has said, if I don't make the playoffs, I think I'm going to be done. So something we don't want to see because finding another member is very hard, as we saw this year. But I think Pettit's going to turn around this year. I think he's going to come in a little more prepared, a little ready. I think we might see something out of him this year.
I agree. This is another guy that needs this top pick in the draft. Like Maddox said, he's on his way out of the league potentially if he has a bad finish. So we don't want that to happen. He is a founding father of this league, but it's time for him to step it up.
Yeah, Jack. I feel like Jack can make a run this year. As long as he drafts good and has the injury luck that really the opposite's been plaguing him the past few years, I think he'll be okay. At number 4, you have the reigning champion, Luke Mazer.
He's going to screw it up somehow.
I mean, do we want to touch on this one? I mean,
before we go on, Pac, I've noticed that you said that you think everyone's gonna have a great year. You don't trash talk at all, and it really upsets me, man.
You know, I gotta butter them up a little bit so I can break them down later. It's okay. It's my style.
Yikes. Going back to Mazer, once again, Mazer gets a nice pick. I mean, we all say it and we'll keep saying it. The only reason he won last year is he drafted McCaffrey. That's when he picked up getting the 2 pick. I mean, will he be good with McCaffrey on his roster? Yes. I think he drafted a decent team last year, and we've seen players come and have a great first year, then kind of bang off. I think Mazer's headed down that road.
See McCaffrey slowing up anytime too soon. He might not have the season he did last year, but we'll just have to see how Mazer drafts his team.
Yeah, I don't think McCaffrey. I think McCaffrey would be a great keeper. I just hoping that Mazer somehow screws up and has a terrible draft and is stuck complaining the entire time.
Yeah.
Sliding in at the number 5 spot, the man who held the number 6 pick for years on end, John Paytas.
This is a fantasy league hurt us greatly because since the beginning of time, John Paytas has had the 6th pick every year. So seeing him get 5 when he was 1 away was just a heartbreaker for some of us.
Moralizing.
But Paytas has Lamar Jackson as his keeper, an early pick. Really all you need. Now really just don't screw it up.
He's got to make it back to the championship. I mean, he made it the one time. I fortunately beat him.
He was fingertips away from a fantasy championship.
Yeah, it's also another story for another time.
It is.
Actually, we've got
Peyton's
the first ever episode, so go check that out. So
Peyton's Peyton's. We'll see what he does. I do think Lamar is not a good keeper, though. I just could have come out and say it right away. I think keeping Lamar. I don't know I forget the rest of his team, but
It's
Lamar's not the best idea. What?
You're saying not keeping the reigning NFL MVP and a solid fantasy player is not a good keeper?
Yes, I'm saying that.
I
I'd rather
agree.
have a
You can't keep a quarterback. There's too many good ones on a week in, week out basis. I
Like,
feel like
you
that's a
can-
bad keeper.
Let me pull up his team real quick. Give me 3 seconds.
well, jumping forward to
Yeah.
before we come back to Peytos, we're going to see another team keep a quarterback. It's not,
true.
it's not only going to be Peytos.
All right. Peytos can keep someone like Todd Gurley or Keenan Allen. And he's keeping Lamar Jackson.
I'm keeping Lamar out of those three. I mean,
Keeping
After hearing that, I don't really have anyone else.
Keenan Allen's got Herbert thrown to him, so we'll see how that goes. He'll be the number one target, of course, but you never know. It's a rookie quarterback. See how that chemistry builds up. Todd Gurley's got the whole knee issue. Who knows how healthy he is, actually. New system, too.
I mean,
Lamar
John
goes through.
drafts particularly well every year, but I really think it's more on luck than just he kind of picks players out of thin air and they work out. Because we've seen that with other players. I mean, even last year with Lamar Jackson, just a thin air pick that worked out because none of us were expecting to do what he did. But basically, I think that Peytos isn't smart enough to try and make a move for a better player or find a different keeper. I think he's going to stick with Lamar and with what he's got on his roster. It is the best choice to keep as keeper.
I don't think Lamar was on a roster week 1. I think Peyton's picking him up after week 1 or something like that.
It might have been after Luck. Might have been after Peytos picked Luck last year and he retired. Might have been that.
Yeah.
Well, to move on, we have a new person in the 6th spot, Cole. So, Cole, I feel like in the 6th spot, I mean, it could be hit or miss. He could have a terrible draft, could have a decent draft.
You just don't predict him. There's nothing he can do. I was talking to the kid today. He told me he's keeping Mahomes, and he plans on trying to take Travis Kelce with the 6th pick.
Okay.
Yes. You don't predict Cole Arsenal because you don't know what he's going to do. He walked in last year and picked who was it? It was he picked Royce Freeman last year. It was like first overall pick.
Yeah, he meant to choose Devontae Freeman.
Exactly. He does stuff like that. You don't predict Cole. You let him do what he does. He still hasn't missed the playoffs.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
going to keep Mahomes. That's who his team's built around. The man of the day.
He'll probably have 2
You
tight
take
ends
me,
playing in his
check me.
flexes. I mean, just don't predict Cole and just let him do what he does, and it's fun to watch.
And it
Yeah,
works.
for sure.
It does work. It works very well.
If he
Now,
broke, don't fix it.
and now moving on to the number 7 spot, start with another co-host, Gabe. Gabe, what do you think of holding number 7 spot in the draft?
Well, after Maddox just said that he talked to Cole earlier today, and Cole's going to draft Travis Kelce 6, I think that kind of helps me a little bit there because my keeper's going to be Michael Thomas, so it gives me more of an option to choose if I want to have a strong wide receiver core, especially with our PPR league, or try to find a good running back who'd be available after the 6th pick. So it'll be interesting. I'm sure I can find someone with a top 20 talent this year. So we'll see.
Moving on to the next pick, we have Austin. So, Austin, what do we think about the number 8 pick in the draft? Doesn't really seem like a great pick, but how are you going to make the best of it this year?
Well, having the 8th pick, one of the worst in the 12-team draft. Most people know that, but not the worst. And going with that, the other day I made a trade, locked up my new keeper, Dalvin Cook. Me and Billy Baxter swapped a few late-round picks. I got Dalvin. Not going to go into the full details, but going with that, I'm also only 2 picks behind Cole, so hearing he's picking Kelce in the first round also helps me because I'm right behind him, get an extra available player that I want. And I'm still not sure how I'm going to approach the draft, but we'll see how.
I think for Austin, the biggest key for him isn't actually how he drafts, it's how the 2 in between him draft because he's stuck between a rock and a hard place with two of the smarter drafters in the league, and Kane thinks he's got a keeper, a late round guy ready to go, and next thing you know, one of these two is picking it up. It's basically, I'm glad where I am more just because I'm away from them than anything, and it's more the fact that I think that's going to be his key to the draft, is hoping that these two don't see what he sees in a pick player.
Here's the thing here. Like since I've been in the league, me and Pac have talked. Like our draft spots, mine and his, have been so close together every
neck
year
and neck every time.
that we just talk about like, hey, like, what are you gonna do here? Like, and we just like, I remember last year he was talking about getting Nick Chubb, and he was like, I really told him, I go, dude, if you don't get Nick Chubb right now, I'm gonna get him. So like, it's a good pick, and then I think I ended up getting like Devontae Freeman right after or something like that. So
yeah, I mean, I have the next pick at 9. So normally I'd say, all right, not 9's kind of a terrible pick, but I mean, not really. I mean, I'm only 4 off the back end, and honestly, some of my best drafts have come from an interesting spot, whether it be like a 4 spot or a 9 spot. And being only 2 picks after Cole, or 3 picks after Cole, I feel like a guy could slip to me. But really, having Kamara as my keeper, it sets me up with having a stud running back in the first place. So I can work often and see, okay, maybe a receiver falls to me, or maybe I load up on 2 running backs and jump on a receiver on the wraparound. But really, I think I'm in a good spot with 9. May try to move up a little bit, see what I can work out with some of the extra guys on my team. But I feel like I'm really going to make the best of it. And moving on to the next spot, we have Hassett. So in this, from 7 to 10, we have Gabe, Austin, myself, and Hassett. So that's 4 of your better drafters in the league in really a murderer's row. So I really think if a guy starts to slip, it's not making past. If it gets past one of us, it's not making past 2. So you're really going to see the skill of drafting and who's really prepared and who's not in that core. But what do we think of Hassett in that 10 hole?
Hassett always has underrated drafts, except for I remember a couple years ago when Saquon was a rookie, he kept Odell and drafted Saquon first overall pick. I mean, he likes his Giants, obviously, but he definitely has good drafts, and it shows. Like last year, he was in the championship. Unfortunately, lost to Mazer, but he definitely has good teams every year.
Hassett's always one to look out for. I mean, he's one of the top. I mean, you 3. It's a murderous row. I'm glad I'm not there. Hassett's going to be good, and I think we're going to see some stuff. So he's going to take something right at 10, and you 3 are going to be very upset because you all wanted him. I think that's going to be my favorite part of the draft, is kind of watching your guys' reactions to someone you wanted or thought you were going to be able to get come off before you're up.
Yeah, I think Hassett will make the best out of it. Where he is, he's right near the back end, so we'll get the swing around. And I think we'll have a good draft, and he's always a good team, so we'll see.
Yeah, so moving on, we have Billy and Barron to wrap up the draft. I mean, Angelo having that double pick with the end of the one round and the beginning of the next, I feel like that's really going to help him out as a newcomer in the league, where he's going to get the double up with 2 guys he really wants. And Billy, I mean, it's a rough spot. I mean, it's not a terrible one, but for someone that doesn't typically have, I guess I would put it as like a B. He usually has like B- drafts, not really an upper echelon one. I feel like it's going to be hard being in the range he's at. But I want to hear what you guys think of the last 2 slots in our draft.
I think Baxter 11. I feel bad for him after the murderous row. He's getting a tough time thinking players, but Billy's had years where he's hit everything and years where he's missed a lot. I think it's going to be tough for him, but it's definitely a doable project if he does his research and puts some luck into it. With Barron at the 12, he's back. It's been a while. Andrew Luck's no longer in the league. It's been that long. I think he's a knowledgeable person. He knew what he was doing back then. He puts on a little bit of research. He understands what the double pick means and what he can do with it. He should have a very solid draft, even having to go after the murderous route.
Yeah, I agree. That last pick definitely going to help him a lot coming back into the league. Just once he starts getting some more knowledge in his head about football. He'll be ready to rock, and he'll use that double pick at the end of the draft order well.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been in a draft with him yet, so it'll be interesting for me to see like what he does with that last pick there and that round double pick. Because I remember my first year in the league, I had the 12th pick, so it'll definitely be interesting to see what he does with it and how if it's similar to what I did, and maybe he'll succeed with it.
Well, that's your draft order for our 2020
Number one, baby.
Linwood 24, 47, 32 draft. Now, stay tuned for possible trades, possible bombshell information, and we will have it breaking for you on our podcast. So moving on, us four, in our preparation for our draft. Oh, Austin, one more thing?
Well, this actually does not go with fantasy, but just got something on my phone saying that Steve Cohen will make another bid at the Mets after his $2.6 billion deal for the team fell apart in February. So look out for that on the sports side of things. We'll see how that goes.
I'll save my piece on that, but it won't be a rant. It'll be if that happens, you'll get a very happy side of me as a Mets fan. But as I was saying with our mock draft, we slid into our spots where we are drafting. So for example, Maddox was 1, I was 9, Gabe was 8,
7.
Gabe was 7. See, I can't even remember anymore. Austin was 8. So we're going to give you a rundown of what we did and our thought process of how we attacked it.
Keep in mind, this is this league, this mock draft is going to be a little different than our league will be because our league has keepers, so we all have our own keepers. This mock draft did not have any keepers, so it's a little different here.
It's more of just what our thinking would be with random teams and you pull them out where you're situated anyway, just kind of what our thinking is, just so you guys get some more fantasy knowledge and kind of see how we play our games ourselves.
Well said, well said. So to start off our draft, we had Maddox at the 1 spot. Maddox took the consensus number 1 in most people's minds, Christian McCaffrey. So Maddox, I mean, is there anything really even to say with this one? I feel like McCaffrey was just the go-to right away, right?
McCaffrey's the one. I mean, I took a look at Thomas, Zeke, Saquon, but I mean, it's McCaffrey. Everyone's saying he's the one. Sometimes you kind of fall into that. I look at the other guys. I kind of like what they're doing. But, well, he doesn't have to have the exact year he did last year. If he's putting up 95% of what he did last year, he'll still be a fantastic fantasy player itself, and it'll be great for the team. I think just there's no way you can pass up McCaffrey at 1.
I mean, looking at last year's points, you had McCaffrey at 471. The second pick of the draft, Michael Thomas, only at 374 in a PPR. That's absurd. That's number 1 talent, number 1 value and talent if I've ever heard it. So just to fly through the next few picks, he had Michael Thomas, Zeke, Saquon, Kamara, and Dalvin Cook fly off the board. So now we get to Gabe. Gabe, what was your thinking as you saw the players come off the board and really as it approached your pick? Were you thinking, okay, I'm automatically going wide out, automatically going running back, or am I going to just let it fall to me?
I was thinking the entire time, especially pick number 7, that I'm not going to get any of the top 3, 4 running backs. So I'm thinking wide out the entire time. And my favorite out of the 3 of the Adams, Julio, and D-Hop was D-Hop. So ultimately I chose him over the other 2. And I think, especially with Kyler Murray being his second year and better now, I think he'll have a great year.
Moving on to the next pick, I mean, we had Austin. So Austin, being right behind Gabe and really having the same board, what did you think in terms of making your selection?
I'm usually a running back first guy. That's just what I like to do. But this time I went with Julio. Still the number 1 target in Atlanta. No question about that. But I just hope he gets his red zone targets up a little bit this year. And red zone catches and touchdowns, literally anything. Just in the red zone for him. It seems like they've had a problem connecting with that. But hopefully they do get that back.
Now moving on to my pick. So obviously I had all the top tier running backs fly off the board and 2 of the top tier receivers, or 3, including Thomas, with 2 coming right in front of me with Hopkins and Julio. So my line of thinking was Hill and Godwin are great, but there's also a lot of targets in those two systems. And Derrick Henry, I felt like wasn't a great value at 9. So with Devontae Adams still sitting on board, being the clear number 1 in Green Bay, and knowing that he's Aaron Rodgers' favorite target, I really couldn't pass up the opportunity to make him my wide receiver 1. And after that pick, you saw Henry, Godwin. You saw those type of guys come off the board. Another few more running backs with Chubb, Drake, Mixon. But when the board got back to me, I did have Aaron Jones on the board and Austin Eckler and Miles Sanders. But with there not really being any clear competition to Josh Jacobs, I felt that's a setup for an RB1 talent. Like, the guy really – he basically took the reins last year till he got banged up, and having another full year in the system to develop with it, I feel like he's really going to establish himself as a running back 1 talent. So, Austin, building off what you saw with my pick, what was your thinking into your next one?
My next pick, I went with Aaron Jones. I think I like to spread it out when I draft. I don't really like to double up on positions before I don't have anything filled in the other one. So I went with Aaron Jones there. I think he's going to be a great player in PPR this year. I think he's going to get a bunch of receptions. And he's still that number 1 back. So I don't think there's much competition with him there either.
Gabe, how about you? So you doubled up on wide receivers. Did you not like any of the running backs on the board?
I'm trying to think of some of the other running. Like, I thought I can get a decent running back in the 3rd round. So, and I saw a talent in Mike Evans that I just couldn't really pass up. So I had to double and get 2 arguably top 10 wide receivers in D-Hop and Mike Evans. So that was my thinking out of it.
I mean, right there you already see a split. Me and Austin saw how, okay, we went one position, we got to go with the other, which what I see is it's splitting up, making sure you have a top-tier guy at both spots. Gabe really saw an opportunity to have 2 of the best receivers in the league with Thomas and Evans and really make sure no one's beating
D-Hop and Evans.
D-Hop and Evans. And making sure that no one's beating that position group in the league. So moving down the board, we get down to Maddock. And Maddock had a really interesting turnaround pick, especially with the round we were in. So Maddock, I don't want to really spoil what you did, but what was your line of thinking going into the selections you had?
I planned this right away, and I knew exactly what I wanted, whether it's considered a reach or a steal or whatever it was. I planned coming in and thinking I was going to take this dude, and I wanted Pat Mahomes, and I drafted him right there. I didn't think I was going too early. Pat Mahomes, on his day, has the chance to be the best fantasy player in the season. He's one of the best players in the league. He's in the most explosive offense. I don't trust the running back probably as much as I should with Edwards-Helaire. I think he's going to be good, but I think they're going to be throwing a lot, even right near the goal line. He's going to be primed for 5 touchdown weeks almost every week. You know he's throwing 300-plus yards a week. I think it'd be hard to find better value out of a position player than just go with Pat Mahomes.
You see, my whole thing with drafting a quarterback that early is if I'm waiting till 3rd round at the earliest. Because
I'm not getting back in the swing.
But if Mahomes and Lamar are there, I'm taking one of them in the 3rd. Because their talent, in my opinion, is too good to pass up. If both of them are gone, I'm waiting. Because with Mahomes and Lamar, you're essentially getting a top-tier talent production at any spot. And with how points are changing, quarterbacks, especially our league, quarterback points are weighed a little bit heavier than running back points. So if Maddock made a pick like this in our league, with Mahomes throwing the amount of 50-yard bombs he throws, that's that few extra points that could be the difference between a win and a loss. So I really like where he was coming with that. And then he went with DJ Moore for the wraparound, which I think that was you trying to make sure you get an established number 1 as a receiver, correct?
Yeah, I looked through it. I mean, I didn't love the time limit with, I think it was 45 seconds we had. I thought it was a little too short for me to kind of really take a look. But I was looking at the receivers, and the ones available at the time weren't ones I loved that I knew what they could do. And even though I already had McCaffrey, I've never been one to shy away from doubling up an offense, whether it's a running back, quarterback, receiver, running back, wide receiver. I've never had a problem knowing that an offense can be potent and there's plenty to go around each week for a player. And I think DJ Moore is an established number 1. He's shown it over the last couple of years. and he's doing well. And I think if Teddy Bridgewater finds the form he found in New Orleans or back in Minnesota in his day, DJ Moore is going to have a season with him.
Interesting. So we move on now, and we have Gabe going with another wide receiver. So what was your thinking with that, Gabe?
What was Amari Cooper, right?
Yes, you went with Amari Cooper at that spot.
Amari Cooper's another guy I consider top 10, top 15 receiver. As much as I hate drafting Cowboys, I thought in that position right there, it's an easy choice to make. I kind of have to make that choice. So I thought, if I'm already going to double up with 2 receivers, why not get 3 and just win the league with my receiving core?
So you went with you're going with a no RB style where you're really going okay, I'm going to load up on receivers and whatever running backs I end up selecting, correct?
After the first round, though, so.
Yeah, I like how you kind of moved with the board. You didn't just reach with a running back. You saw value there and really pounced on it, because that core you developed over this mock draft with Hopkins, with Amari Cooper, and with Mike Evans, you're getting 10 plus at least out of those guys every week. And now moving on to Austin, as I said, this is the range I would really look for Lamar, and that's what you did. This is really okay, I see the value of what Lamar brings, not just throwing the ball, but running the ball. And you pounced on that very, very early for most people, but personally, I really see where you're coming from with this.
Yeah, I think I'm just like you when I draft, kind of, when it comes to quarterbacks. I like to wait, but you see guys like Mahomes and Lamar putting up close to 40, 50 points last year. I've never had a good quarterback like that, like a top tier. So I thought, if they're there this year, why not grab them? Get my quarterback, lock me up this year, and I did good. So that's why I went with Lamar there.
Yeah, I've really run into that issue too, where I'm never really getting that top tier quarterback. I'm always having to scramble, go through the waiver wire. But with my next pick, I went with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and my whole thinking with this was, I'm already established with a running back and receiver. I'm going to see what value I like on the board. In my opinion, I felt like on the flip around, I would be able to grab a wide receiver that was good enough to carry as a wide receiver too, where I could make an upside pick with a running back. And I want to pardon the Chiefs offense. With Mahomes at the helm, it's one of the best, if not the best, offense in the league. And
definitely the best.
And knowing how Andy Reid runs his offense and how he called Helaire basically a better version of Brian Westbrook, they're going to give him the ball a lot. And I feel like catching him 3rd round, maybe 4th, where he could explode into a top 15, top 10 running back in a PPR format, I felt like it was a slam dunk for me at this spot. Moving on the wraparound, I was right, because as a wide receiver too, I am perfectly fine picking Odell Beckham. Now, as a wide receiver 1, no. I would not feel very comfortable having Odell as my wide receiver 1. But with a guy like Davante Adams carrying the load as a wide receiver 1, it's a lot easier to replace Odell as a wide receiver 2 than him as a wide receiver 1. It's a lot easier to replace any wide receiver 2 than a wide receiver 1. And making sure I had that tandem. So at this point in the draft, I had Jacobs, Helaire, Adams, and Beckham. So I have really a solid floor, and also I have the upside with Helaire and Beckham. So I really felt comfortable with what I was doing at this point in the draft. Now, these next 2 picks from Austin and Gabe, I think they're interesting, especially from Austin. Austin, was this another case of I never really had a top-tier guy at this position, so I'm going to go for it this year?
Yeah, exactly the same thing. My quarterback situation, never had a solid guy. Here we are, tight end comes up. See Zach Ertz on the board. He's always a great tight end every game. Plays hard, scores a lot of touchdowns. It's what you need on your fantasy team, and to lock up a solid tight end, it's always good to do.
Now, are you worried, with 2 of these picks where, because of the capital you're spending on them, if they somehow get hurt or fan out, that you didn't spend it on a running back or receiver, or are you okay taking that risk?
Well, when it comes down to it, it's just that's what fantasy football is. You got to take the risk if you want to win throughout the whole year, whether it's making a certain trade, adding, dropping a guy. It's always about the risk that you take, and I'm willing to do it if I can get a good tight end that can put up at least 10 points a game because I know Zach Ertz will do that because he's definitely the number one target in Philly.
And now moving on to Gabe. You took Melvin Gordon, right? And great talent, amazing talent for the Chargers last year. But in that convoluted Denver backfield, what did you see out of him that you were like, okay, I'm okay making him my running back one?
Basically, in the 4th round, I decided I should finally get a running back. I thought it was time. Couldn't really go too heavy on the receivers without any other positions. So, and I figured he would be best talent available. I think he'll get the majority of the carries over Philip Lindsay, but it'll be interesting to see, especially with Drew Lock developing more, and because Melvin Gordon's a guy who can also catch the ball out of the backfield. So it'd be interesting to see if Drew Lock needs anything, needs a little check down pass, Melvin Gordon will be right there, can catch the ball. He's a heavy runner, so it'll be interesting to see.
I just think it's also interesting because they have Lindsay and Royce Freeman there, and then they added
Royce Freeman
Judy.
doesn't really bother me. It's Philip Lindsay that
it's Lindsay, right?
That'll split the carries with Gordon, but I think Gordon will get the majority.
But then you also have to worry about KJ Handler and Jerry Judy and Cortland Sutton and Noah Fant. I mean, there's a lot of mouths to feed in that offense, and having multiple running backs in that system, it makes it really hard for me. I feel like to put all the weight on Gordon as number one guy. But on the Matic, you doubled up at wide on the wraparound. So what was your thinking there?
I mean, I had one receiver. I didn't love the running backs there. None of them were too great to really show as an RB2. So I decided let's double up receiver, and I believe it was Diggs and Devontae Parker.
Yes.
I mean, those two are both receiver ones. You've got Kirk. You've got wrong team. You've got Josh Allen, who's starting to prove with John Brown last year, and I think with Diggs adding on, Josh Allen's going to have a field day with that and really going to make it go. And then Devontae Parker, great year with Fitzpatrick. I think Tua coming in. Tua likes to sling it. Parker likes to go up and get it, likes to make moves around guys. He does everything. He's a fantastic football player, and he's just a solid pick for where I got him.
Yeah, I think I really like your reasoning with that. Double up on a position, make sure it's strong. So just moving through these a little faster. Matic, as he said, doubled up on receivers. Austin and Gabe went running back. Gabe went Mostert. Kane went Montgomery. Mostert, I feel like, in that whatever-headed, 3-4-headed San Francisco backfield. Really good pick because on any day, really any Sunday, you don't know what guy's going to be the hot hand. So having a hand in that, just throwing them in as your flex, feel like that's a great idea. Montgomery, I love the pick by Austin. Buying low on a guy that had a lot of hype coming in last year. Will probably be the bell cow for Chicago going forward. And me with DJ Shark.
Shark.
He slides into my flex with this team, and I feel like he could really produce better, if not similar, numbers to Beckham this year. Minshew loved him last year, threw him the ball a ton, and he has all the talent in the world, in my opinion, and having him as a third receiver was a no-brainer for me.
You guys happy with those picks down there?
Yeah, I liked it because he's Mostert would be my running back too for that. So it especially like Pac said, it'll just be any given Sunday, one of them can have a great day in that backfield, and I feel like most time Mostert will have the ball, so most time will be him.
Yeah, I like having Montgomery. I think he's a good guy to have on your team, and I think it's going to be his year to break out and finally prove himself after he was so hyped up.
In the next round, I went Jonathan Taylor, Indianapolis running back, rookie, but I feel like he'll take over the job at least by midseason. Don't think Marlon Mack is as talented as him. I feel like Taylor's an underrated receiver. Austin with Julian Edelman, Gabe with Tyler Boyd, and Matic finished the round with Jordan Howard. So what So a quick recap on your guys' picks. What was the thinking going into them?
I took Edelman. I think he's got his new quarterback, Cam Newton, coming in. I think Cam's ready to sling it around and improve himself because he's been disrespected this past offseason. So he's going to make a run back to the playoffs, hopefully, and see what he can do.
I got Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd's my guy. He's not going to put up crazy numbers, but he'll put up 13, 14 points a week, which isn't bad for a flex spot when I need him in there, or a backup receiver spot. He's also good in the trade market. So I'll see how much I play him this year, but I plan on playing him quite a bit.
Jordan Howard, definitely a little bit of reach, but I think if he finds his Chicago form again, definitely something that could really be helpful in that offense. But I also have a little bit of plan. You'll find out later of why I was okay with reaching on Howard a little bit.
On the wraparound, Matic picked up a very interesting pick with Rob Gronkowski. Gabe picked up Kerryon Johnson. Austin went with Darius Geis, and I went with Keyshawn Vaughn. So Matic, just right off the bat, explain why you went with the recently unretired Gronk as a tight end.
Gronk and Brady together. Gronk, not probably going to be the tight end he once was, but I think Gronk's a great pick for where I got him. I think it should be very simple. He's going to put somewhere up between 8 and 12 points a game, and there'll be a couple where he's going to go off in the 20s with some 2 touchdowns, 8 catches, yards. Gronk's going to look like the guy of old, but not peak Gronk.
Gabe, how about you with Kerryon?
Kerryon, definitely could be if he's healthy, he could be a great backup running back for me. He can come off the bench if I need him. He can play that flex position. I can move Mostert to the flex position if I want to. And also, he's an Auburn guy, so I have a little special place in my heart for him.
With Geis, I like him this year. I think he's going to finally take over that lead role after an injury. He's going to come back strong. Had a long time to get better and ready to go. I think he's ready to go. He's going to be a big part of that offense this year.
Yeah. Geis is the guy I should have taken. I should have taken Geis over Howard. I was in between them. That's where I should have changed.
Yeah, Geis I feel like he's going to explode onto the scene. Third year breakout. But with Keyshawn Vaughn, I feel like Ronald Jones hasn't done much in Tampa. He isn't going to do much. Vaughn was drafted in the 3rd round for a reason. They really like him in Tampa. And I feel like with his receiving prowess, he'll be a perfect check down target. I'll James White for Brady down there. Next round, I went with, surprisingly, or pretty early for me, tight end wise, but I went with Hunter Henry. Austin went with Darrell Henderson Jr. Gabe went with Darius Slayton, and Matic closed out the round with the oft-injured Sony Michel. So just to quickly explain my pick, I wanted a established tight end. I feel like with Herbert most likely getting the nod, maybe beginning of the season, mid-season at the latest, I feel like as a rookie quarterback, he'll be looking for his tight end a lot of checkdowns. So I feel like Hunter Henry will get the job done for him.
For me, Henderson, we saw Todd Gurley get released this offseason. So Henderson is going to get his fair shot at that lead back role. He was limited a bunch last year, but if he takes the right steps, I think he could definitely have that lead role locked up for sure.
I went with Darius Slayton. I thought, he's a really underrated receiver. He could definitely have a top 20, top 25 year if he stays healthy. He's I feel like after a year, him and Daniel Jones have had they've had a year to develop and grow together. I think they'll be fine, especially with not the best talent in the defensive back area in the NFC East, playing each team twice a year. I remember him burning the Eagles last year, and I'm like, oh God, I have to get this guy. I think he can have a really good year.
That leaves me at Michelle with taking Howard early. I wanted some more running back depth, and he's the Patriots' bell cow back. He's the goal line guy. He's going to see the ball probably 15, 18 carries a game every season as long as he can stay healthy. And I think with Newton coming in, they're going to rely on him a little bit at least early, and it should be helpful. I think Michelle's going to have a very promising fantasy season.
Only thing I'll say about one of your guys' picks, Henderson, I'd be worried about Cam Akers coming in and stealing that job. Very, very talented back out of Florida State. But on the wraparound, Maddox picked up a really interesting pick, Christian Kirk. Gabe scooped up Austin Hooper. Austin picked up Henry Ruggs, and I scooped up a quarterback much earlier than I anticipated in round 9 with Carson Wentz.
I mean, Christian Kirk is the number 2.5 receiver. Him and Fitz are probably kind of like both there. You're probably going to work Kirk in more as Fitz gets close to retirement, but Kirk's a very good receiver and a very pass-happy offense, and I feel like he's going to see targets. He's been with Kyler since day one. I think those two are going to form a partnership together, and with D-Hop now taking a lot of attention away from Kirk, it should open up seams for him to have a very promising season.
I went with Austin Hooper. I needed a tight end. Austin is my guy. He's productive. He's consistent. He doesn't – I mean, like, through the first 3 quarters of every single game, I don't know how it'll be this year, but with Matt Ryan, he's always like 3 or 4 points in fantasy. I'm like, oh, God, he's going to screw me up here. And then gets a late touchdown in the fourth quarter, he puts up consistent points, and I'm just happy I got him there.
Going with Ruggs in that spot, I think eventually he'll take over, possibly on one receiver in Vegas once him and Carr or Mariota, whoever it is, get that connection, chemistry going. I think he's going to be a great wide receiver this year, and hopefully he'll find his way into my starting lineup at some point.
I was really happy with my Wentz pick right here. Felt like he was the best quarterback on the board, talent and upside wise. I feel like with their weapons around him and the talent he has, he could really establish himself as a top 10, top 5 quarterback in fantasy this year. So moving on, we had me taking Jerry Jeudy on the wraparound at pick 112, with Austin taking Robbie Anderson, Gabe taking Deshaun Jackson, and Maddox taking Justin Jefferson. So a very wide receiver heavy round. Jerry Jeudy, I mean, he has all the talent in the world, in my opinion. I feel like, if not the number 1, he'll establish himself as the number 2 to Cortland Sutton in Denver. Simple as that. He has the talent to make it work, and he's going to establish a good rapport with Drew Lock.
Yeah. Oh, Robbie Anderson. My fault. I zoned out. Robbie Anderson, I think he's a good pick there. New place, Carolina. If him and Teddy Bridgewater get that deep threat going, hopefully it'll work out. But that's just really a depth pick at the wide receiver position for me there. Not too much about it.
The same thing with me with Deshaun Jackson here. Deep threat receiver, good bench guy, needs some depth. And I think we saw in week 1 last year with him and Wentz, 2 50-yard bombs for touchdowns. He's a little older compared to some guys, but he's still speedy, he's fast. He can burn guys whenever he wants. So I think it's definitely a great pick.
I mean, Justin Jefferson, Diggs' replacement. Thielen's there. Kirk Cousins likes to throw the ball. I just think that he's going to develop himself into something really good. He's just like Christian Kirk. Gives me good depth, can absolutely break into something phenomenal, and I like him where I got him, and I like the potential I could be seeing of possibly sliding him in my flex, or if he even does that much, into a wide receiver spot.
On the wraparound, Maddox picked up Matt Breida. Austin picked up Latavius Murray. While the pick before, Gabe picked up J.K. Dobbins, and I picked up Tevin Coleman. So, once again, I'll pick the same spots, but we'll start with Maddox evaluating his pick.
Well, I told you there's a plan with Breida, and Breida and Howard. I have both of Miami's running backs, and one of them is going to establish himself as the bell cow, while the other one comes in just to give them a break. I think Breida is going to actually end up winning this battle, and I probably should have changed my thinking a little bit. But I think they're both fantastic running backs, and they're not going to be splitting time. One of them is going to take over the role for themselves and go from there.
Yeah, I got J.K. Dobbins. You know, thinking about what Pac said during the first fantasy podcast, they're going to be a really underrated player. I think he has the potential to be the running back 1 on that team. You don't have star receivers in Baltimore. You just have Lamar Jackson really doing it all. So it'll be good to see if he can take some pressure off himself and hand the ball to Dobbins. Plus, I know I kind of figured Austin and Pac were kind of after him too. So it helps to see them hurt a little bit.
You got that one right.
Going with Latavius this round. Just one of those other depth picks. You never know what's going to happen with Kamara. Dude gets the ball all the time in the pass game, runs it a bunch too, and Latavius on the goal line. If I throw him in the flex position, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, so with my pick, I won the piece out of San Francisco. What I said about the Raheem Mostert pick earlier was my exact thinking going into it with Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman is a part of that basically Russian roulette game that they're playing over there in San Francisco with the running backs, where you don't really know who's going to play, but whoever plays usually has 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So really simple as that for me. Want a piece of that San Francisco Kyle Shanahan offense. Next round, kind of my same thinking there with Damian Williams. Austin went with Duke Johnson. Gabe picked the quarterback in Drew Lock. And Maddox picked up Paris Campbell from the Indianapolis Colts.
So, Pac, you want to?
Pac, you're up, buddy.
Yeah, just want to take a little minute to let that sink in for the listeners. No, but honestly, I had the same thinking as my previous pick with Tevin Coleman. I want another piece of that Kansas City backfield. Another emphasis for it was I picked Clyde Edwards-Helaire very early on in the draft. I don't want to lose out on that production in the Kansas City backfield. So I figured if I'm going to get a handcuff, it's going to most likely be for him because of the uncertainty that Helaire has with the starting job.
And here going with Duke Johnson. He could potentially win that role in Houston. You never know. So just another one of the depth picks. See what happens.
Yeah, I decided to finally. What round was this? Where we were in?
Round 12.
Yeah, it's kind of how I pick. I don't really worry about quarterbacks. I find the one little guy who can make it all happen usually. And I got Drew Lock, my guy, the guy who I think is going to be a breakout player this year, and especially with all the talent around him, I think he'll have a great year.
I'm sorry. Paris Campbell, I think, could be Philip Rivers' favorite receiver this year. I mean, T.Y.'s there, but T.Y. is deep threat, injured a good amount. Paris Campbell looks like he's going to make some strides in year 2.
Well, on the wraparound, Maddox picked up one of his favorites in Hunter Renfrow. Gabe Jamal Williams. Austin scooped up Justin Jackson, and I picked James Washington.
I mean, at this point, we get to the point in the draft where you're kind of drafting guys that you hope are breaking out, but most likely are going to end up back in the free agency list by the end of the season. Renfro's heading into his second season? Anyone know? Second season, third,
I think.
I mean,
Yeah.
He looked good. He looked very good in the slot at the end of the year. I think it could be a stride season for him, but most likely Renfro's probably never getting off my bench.
Right. Yeah. So I needed I needed some running back depth, and Aaron Jones is a guy who runs the ball hard, so it's always possible that he can get hurt. And Jamal Williams being that backup there, he could definitely see some good playing time.
For me, Eckler. I have Justin Jackson, but Eckler is now the lead one in the Charger system. So, you never know. He's in the pass game. He's in the run game. He could definitely get hurt. Same thing with why I picked Latavius. You never know what's going to happen. Justin Jackson has showed some promise the past few seasons, so you never know what's going to happen with that.
Listen, at this point of the draft, round 13, my thought process is I'm picking someone with upside. Maybe they explode as a flex, but if not, they'll probably get cut for some guy that goes off during a game during the year. James Washington has upside in the Steelers offense. They always develop great wideouts. Hoping he becomes a 2 besides Schuster, but if not, he'll be on the waiver wire. Maybe he gets picked up again, maybe he doesn't. On the wraparound, I ended up picking a second tight end in Dallas Goedert. Austin went with 49ers defense. Gabe went with the Ravens defense, and Maddox went with Justin Tucker. So with the most exciting of the 4 picks, I went with Goddard, who, in all honesty, I think could overtake Henry in the starting spot if something happened to Ertz. He has an insane amount of talent with the amount of teams committing to Ertz in the passing game. Goddard could have a huge year.
Okay, those 2 pick defenses, I think they're pretty self-explanatory, but you'd like to tell us why you picked your defenses.
Made it to the Super Bowl last year, led by Bosa. Pretty much all I have to say. and I think they have a great shot at making it again.
Ravens defense always been better than average, better than normal. Great secondary, great pass rush. So it'll be good to see him.
Now, with the truly most exciting pick out of us four is Justin Tucker, best kicker in football. It's not even competition. He makes 50-yarders look easy. He's missed like one kick inside 40 yards in the last 5 years. I mean, he's solid all around.
On the wraparound, Maddox picked up Devin Funchess. Gabe went with Chase Edmonds. Austin went with Russell Gage, and I picked the Jets defense.
Funchess is an absolute sleeper, prayer, whatever you want to call it. But he's in Green Bay. He can find his form that 1 year he had in Carolina. He looks promising. Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball. Aaron Rodgers has been asking for receivers for 9 years, and they give him Devin Funchess. But, I mean, he's there. He might as well make the most of it and work with Rodgers, and they could form something alongside Devontae Adams.
Chase Edmonds could be a good backup to Kenyon Drake out there in Arizona. He always has 1 week where he could just have a great game, especially if Kenyon Drake gets hurt. He'll be the lead back there, so it'd be good to see him. Hopefully, get some touches.
For me, going with Russell Gage, one of those guys I really don't know much about. I don't think you'll see too many touches in Atlanta with Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones. It's just one of those guys you could see on the waiver wire after 1 week, 2 weeks, whatever. Could find his way back onto my roster. I mean, not that big of a pick.
Gonna be honest, literally I think I picked the Jets defense every single year. They were a very underrated defense, but the minute they have a bad game and someone goes off, they're probably getting cut for another defense. Simple as that.
Especially when Jamal Adams doesn't want to play for them anymore.
Hush.
We already had that rant. Let's not go back to that.
Yeah, let's not bring that back.
Yeah, that was a wasted 5 minutes.
Okay, let's
For the final round, I picked Greg Zuerlein. Austin picked Robbie Gould. Gabe picked Jake Elliott. Maddox picked Rams defense. I mean, is there anything anyone wants to touch on with that?
Basically, just with defenses, I'm more of a defensive streamer. Yes, if I pick a top defense early, I might stick with it, but most likely I'm looking at matchups week to week and just streaming defenses. Last year, I just planned on streaming with the Patriots defense through the first couple weeks, and they were just outrageously good. Sometimes it's better to look through the waiver wire than actually draft.
I feel that same way with kickers. I mean, Zuerlein's always been key, but once the bye week hits and you have to cut a guy, you basically have to put somebody on it and pray that you get the guy you drafted back. All right,
Yeah,
so that'll be it on our fantasy edition of Four Corner Sports. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow our social media pages. And as Maddox always likes to say, please tell your friends.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever else we're on, please tell your friends, like, and subscribe.
TikTok. We need a TikTok clout. Come on, we need a TikTok clout.
So, for Zach Maddox, Austin Kane, and Gabe
We're
Barino,
coming, Portnoy.
I'm Brandon Pockers. And as I always say, stay classy.